They spent $800,000 on my sister's birthday, but told me they couldn't afford my son's hospital bill. He was 3, barely breathing, and they hung up on me while I begged them from the emergency room. If this made your heart stop for even a second, then like, share, and hit subscribe, because what you're about to hear will shake you. The twist at the end? Unforgettable. I was never the favourite. Poppy, the accident child, as my mum once whispered during an argument. Everything was always about her, my older sister Candice. Even the walls of our house screamed it. Portraits of her in gowns, trophies in glass cases, and a private suite with a walk-in closet bigger than my entire apartment. Me? I got the box room and silence. But I never complained. I studied, worked 2 jobs, and raised my son alone, after my boyfriend walked out when he found out I was pregnant. But the day Liam collapsed in daycare with a rare heart defect, my world flipped. The doctors said he needed surgery immediately. I had $1,200 in my account. The bill, $35,000. I did what anyone would do. I called my parents. My hands were shaking, voice cracking. I said, please, he might not survive the night. My dad said, that's a lot of money, Poppy. And my mom added, can't his father help? That was it. No follow-up call, no visit, just click. The next day, my Instagram feed showed Candice sitting on a throne, literally, at her $800 royal-themed birthday party, diamond cake, fire dancers, a live orchestra, and my mum smiling like she'd won the lottery. That night, as Liam lay unconscious, I made a promise to myself in that cold hospital hallway. If he survived, they just didn't know that day was coming faster than they thought. 4 years later, they showed up at my office in designer clothes, acting broke. I almost laughed. The same people who once ignored my calls when Liam was dying were now begging me to help save their house from being seized. My mum's exact words? Poppy, sweetheart, the bank is being so cruel to us. I looked her dead in the eye and said, you know what's cruel? Watching your grandson fight for life while you post cake photos. But let's rewind a bit, because the journey from that hospital hallway to a penthouse corner office didn't happen overnight. After Liam's surgery, paid by a kind nurse who started a crowdfunding page that went viral, I worked like a woman possessed. I slept 4 hours a night. I learned coding from free YouTube videos while working 2 jobs. I built a simple app to help mums track newborn medical symptoms. It failed. Then another one. That failed too. But the third one, that changed everything. I called it Pulse Mama, and within 18 months it had over 3 million downloads. Paediatric clinics started endorsing it, and investors, they came to me. By year 2, we had 12 employees. Year 3, I was featured in Forbes under Mums Who Built Million-Dollar Startups. But I never posted about it, never showed off. I wanted to build in silence, and when people like my parents searched my name, they saw nothing, no bragging, no hint, just quiet success. Until last month, when Candice got exposed for tax fraud. Her luxury influencer career crashed. Suddenly, the house of cards started falling. No income, no assets, and guess who they called? At first, I ignored it. Then one day I walked into the office lobby and saw them, waiting. My dad looked thinner. My mum had tears in her. You don't erase 4 years of abandonment with a sad face. She whispered, "Can we talk?" I took a breath, turned to my assistant and said, "Cancel my next meeting. Let's give them 5 minutes." Not because I forgave them, but because I wanted them to hear something they'd never forget. And what I said next, even the receptionist stopped typing. I leaned back in my chair, looked straight at them and said, "You spent $800,000 on a party, but couldn't spare $80 for your grandson's antibiotics. Why are you here now? Oh wait, your golden child can't save you this time." My dad's face turned pale. My mum started sobbing, reaching out like I'd magically forget everything. But I didn't forget. I remembered every voicemail. "We were just trying to support your sister's dreams." I laughed coldly. "Support? You funded her vanity. Meanwhile, I was choosing between medicine and food for my child. You chose your favourite. Now live with that choice." My assistant knocked gently. "Poppy, your investor call is ready." I nodded, then turned to them. "I built a tech company from scratch. I made something out of nothing. You never asked how I was, never checked if Liam survived, but now that you need money, you suddenly remember I exist?" They stood up slowly, eyes still hopeful. That's when I dropped the bomb. "By the way," I said, pulling up an app on my phone, "you know that startup I built, the one worth $30 million now? Guess what? One of our AI tools tracks fraud. It flagged Candice 2 months ago. She'd been redirecting brand payments to offshore accounts." My mum gasped. "You knew?" I smiled. "I built the system that exposed her." They stood frozen, so I stood too, walked to the door and held it open. "Go ask your golden child. Maybe she can wire you money from whatever offshore account she has left." My voice was ice. "Liam and I, we're good now. We don't need your money. We needed your love. But you traded that for a cake with gold and sparkles." As they walked out, humiliated, silent, I felt something lift from my chest. Not revenge, not pride, just peace. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't begging for love. I was standing in power. But just when I thought it was over, something happened that shook me again. This time, not from them, but from Liam. Liam walked into my office that evening with his backpack slung over one shoulder, his face unusually serious. "Mum," he said softly, "can I show you something?" I smiled, expecting a drawing or maybe some school project, but he placed a folded piece of paper on my desk. "It's from school. You need to read it." I opened it and my hands froze. It was a formal complaint about bullying. Liam had written in detail how some kids were mocking him for not having real grandparents, how one even said, "Maybe your mum bought you since no one wanted you." I felt my chest tighten. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, trying not to cry. Liam looked away. "Because I didn't want you to feel bad. You already did everything. I just didn't want to be a problem." Those words cut deeper than anything my parents ever did. Right then I realized this story wasn't just about revenge. It was about breaking the cycle. I knelt down in front of him. "Listen to me, Liam. You are not a problem. You're the reason I fought so hard, and we're going to fix this together." That night I emailed the school board and scheduled a meeting. The next morning, I had my lawyers send legal notices to the parents of the bullies. I wasn't going to let anyone treat my son like he was invisible ever again. Not after everything we survived. But just as I was preparing for battle, something else came in the mail. A handwritten letter. From Candice. And the first line? "I know what you did, and if I go down, I'm taking you with me." My hands trembled as I held Candice's letter. I read it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't imagining the threat. "I know what you did, and if I go down, I'm taking you with me. The words felt like acid, eating through every layer of peace I'd built. I rushed to my safe and pulled out the old flash drive, the one I hadn't touched in 6 years. It held everything: audio recordings, bank transfer screenshots, emails, proof that Candice, my sister, had faked medical bills under Liam's name to steal over $300 million from a children's hospital charity I secretly funded. Back then, I didn't report her. I had just adopted Liam. I didn't want any drama, any court cases that could jeopardize my custody. So I made her sign a private agreement, paid off the stolen amount myself, and warned her to disappear from my life. But now she was back and threatening me. I took the flash drive and booked an urgent meeting with my attorney. "We are going public," I said. "If she wants war, she's getting it." But just hours before we were about to release the evidence, someone from the hospital board called me privately. "Poppy, you need to know something. Candice came in here this morning and said you orchestrated the fraud, that it was your foundation, your idea. And laundering the money through my name, now it was her word against mine." But then another twist dropped. Liam's school called. He'd gone missing after lunch, and the security footage showed him leaving with a woman who looked just like Candice. Final section. Story ending, my heart stopped. I sprinted out of the house, barefoot, phone in one hand, Liam's favourite hoodie in the other, whispering his name like a prayer. The police were already on it, but minutes felt like hours. Then my phone buzzed, a private number. I answered, breathless. "Poppy?" Candice's voice slithered through the speaker. "You want your son back? Drop the case, delete everything, or you'll never see him again." My vision blurred with rage. "If you touch him, Candice, I swear—" But she had already hung up. I didn't wait. I sent the audio of her confession along with hospital documents and the security footage to every news outlet, hospital board member and my lawyer. I knew I was risking it all, but I wasn't going to be bullied ever again. Within 10 minutes, her name was everywhere. Hashtag Candice Charity Scam was trending. Then another call came. "We found him," the officer said. "He's safe." I collapsed on the floor, sobbing, the phone shaking in my hand. They had tracked her down in a seedy motel outside the city. Liam was scared but unharmed. When he saw me, he ran into my arms like his world had finally stopped spinning. I held him tighter than I ever had before. Candice was arrested on the spot, multiple felony charges. No more secrets, no more mercy, no more. 3 months later, I stood in front of thousands at a gala hosted by the very hospital she tried to rob. They honoured me with the Humanitarian of the Year award. Cameras flashed, applause thundered. But the best moment? Liam, beaming at me from the front row, clapping like I was a superhero. And just when I thought it was all over, my parents showed up outside the event. Tearful, ashamed, begging. "Poppy, we had no idea what Candice was doing. Please let us be part of Liam's life." I didn't flinch. I looked at them and said loud enough for the cameras to hear, "Go ask your golden child." Then I turned away, smiling.